Today's training session is continue from 2 weeks ago. We have talked about the purchase stages for buying a house and land. Today we are going to talk about buying an off-the-plan apartment or townhouse. Apartment and townhouse purchase process is quite similar, and compared with buying a house land, they are more simple, easier to understand. So without any further delay, let's start. This is an overall overview. The whole process of buying an apartment or townhouse. We have summarized the whole process into 10 steps. And then 10 steps can be summarized into 4 stages. The first phase will be initial client engagement. At this phase, it includes select the apartment or townhouse for the client, and then take the client to go to the display, or we call it showroom, and then submit EOI. The second phase is signing the contract. Signing contract including send the contract to the client and then client review and sign. And then after signing the contract, client will need to pay the deposits. The third phase will be the waiting period. So after contract signed, the only thing client needs to do is waiting for the settlement. So the construction will be happening. We will need to provide construction updates to the client. And before the settlement, we need to help client or remind them to get the finance approval. And then there is some pre-settlement steps we will talk about in details later. And then the last phase will be settlement. So settlement and then hand over the property to the client. So after we had an overview of the whole process of purchasing an apartment or townhouse, let's go into the details. So step 1 and 2 is property selection and inspect. As a real estate agent, what we need to help our client is research development. Look for new apartment or townhouse projects in client's preferred area. So firstly, we need to ask our client about their budget and the areas they prefer. That requires us to be familiar with all the prices of different areas. For example, we have a new project in Milton. 1-bedroom apartment was starting from 580K. Oh, wait a second. Cammy， 那个线上会议你也在电脑上加入，你可以听一下哟。然后有什么问题也可以问。我刚刚看你好像没加入。Sorry. So firstly, after we gather all this information, we will recommend a project to our client, and then we need to choose a unit in that project. Normally in Australia, one project will only have one building. If it's more than one building, then it's kind of like a bigger scale of project. And in that one building, we'll help client to choose a unit if they prefer 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom or 3 bedrooms. If it's a townhouse, we will just choose, if it's a townhouse project, we'll just help our client to choose a preferred unit. Different units in a townhouse project normally has different types of floor plans, or maybe different stories and different prices. For a townhouse project, we also need to think about lot position. Is it a street frontage or internal? Some people don't like close to the street because more noise. But if someone want to do a house-based business, then they probably want to be a street frontage townhouse. And then a lot of the apartment projects or townhouse project, they will have a display units. And because we're mostly selling off the plan apartment and townhouses, which means the building or the townhouses themselves are not being completed yet. But with the showroom, the client has the chance to have a chance to feel how it would look like after the project complete. But a display showroom is not a must. Some of the project won't have any display or showroom, especially for developers like Mosaic. Their apartment project can be sold very fast. Normally within 2 weeks, 80% of the properties will be sold, so they won't have any display apartment. Once they finish the display, the project might be already sold out. So at the initial stage, it's also important to have a finance plan as early as possible. The main reason for this is to know how much money you can borrow from a bank. So buying an off plan normally requires a 10% deposit, and then the balance due at completion. For townhouses, normally the completion will take 1.5 years. For an apartment, it takes about 2 years to 5 years. So after step 1 and 2, step 3 is EOI stage, expression of interest. So as a sales, once the client has confirmed which unit they like and confirmed the price, we need to help them to submit an EOI to the developer. So the EOI will require unit number, level, plan number, purchase price, and then along with the EOI, clients needs to pay a holding deposit. So the holding deposit normally around 1,000 to 5,000. So this EOI holding deposit is typically refundable, and this amount is going to the seller's lawyer's trust account. So if you had to look at the contract and you didn't like it, you can say no, I don't want this, and then you can get the EOI holding deposit back. So why do we need this EOI? This usually just take the unit that client choose off the market, so no one else can touch it. So the client has the time to review the contract and prepare the 10% deposit. And the EOI normally valid for 7 days. 7 days is a standard time frame, but if the project is very popular, sometimes EOI only lasts for 24 hours. This will depend. So ask me later if you are unsure. And then step 4 is contracts, disclosures, and paying the deposit. So once step 1 and 2, client already select the apartment and the units they like. And then step 3 is we submit the UI for the client to the developer. And then after developer receiving the UI, they will send the contract to the client for review. The contract between the buyer and developer, it will outline the lot number, purchase price, deposit amount, typically 10%, and the settlement terms. Settlement terms including when the estimated time for the apartment or the townhouse you're buying to be settled. It also includes all kinds of floor plans, finishes, and common area details. I think today I wouldn't go to the details, but there's an example. You can click here to review a contract sample. This is a townhouse project contract. We wouldn't go to details, but if you want to get yourself familiar with a contract, go have a look, review these. And then disclosure statement. When buying a community title scheme, community titles, all apartments and townhouses are community titles. The seller needs to give you a disclosure statement under the Body Corp and Community Management Act. It will tell you how much is your body corporate fee and where those body corporate fees pays to. Got a phone call. And we also have an example here. If you wanna have a look at what disclosure statement includes, can have a look at this example. And there are a few terms very important. First term is sunset date. I think we have already talked about this term before. Sunset date means the latest date by which settlement must happen. So normally for a apartment or a townhouses project, the sunset date will be in 3 years. Sometimes 3.5 years, sometimes 5 years, sometimes 18 months. So sunset date in the contract is a very important clause because that's the date the settlement must happen. For example, if we have an apartment. Oh my God. Sorry, I forgot to share my screen, but you guys should be. Oh, you guys have. Wow, the whole time you guys didn't see this. All right, so at contract stage, there are a few terms very important. The first term is sunset date. For example, if the apartment contract, the sunset date is 24 months. That means from contract signing, the settlement must happen within the 24 months. If after 24 months, the developer hasn't completed the construction, then the buyer or the seller, they both have the right to cancel the contract. And then that's when you can get your deposit back. Do you have any questions regarding sunset date? Have I made it clear? Supcha, did you
Yeah, I just want.
did you understand the sunset date?
Yeah, I just want.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on. And then during the contract stage, the client needs to appoint a solicitor to review the contract for them. And then after review the contract with the solicitor, if the clients are happy with all the terms and clauses in the contract, then clients will need to sign the contract and then pay the 10% deposit. So 10% is usually is a very common rate of the initial payment. Sometimes apartment developer will require 20% for foreigner buyers. And this 10% deposit will go to solicitor's trust account. You wouldn't be goes into the developer's account. So developer needs to raise their own funds to complete the construction. So back to the sunset date. If the developer couldn't complete the project within the agreed time frame, then the buyer has the right to say, okay, I really need to get into the apartment, so I want to withdraw from the contract. That if it's after sunset date, then you can get your 10% deposit back. If it's within the sunset date and you want to withdraw from the contract, and then normally the buyer cannot get your deposit back. So sunset date is very important. And then at the review by solicitor stage, sometimes if you want to add into any conditions, this is when you instruct your solicitor to add those clauses in. For example, subject to finance or subject to selling, which means you need to sell your old property and then buy this new one. If you couldn't sell your old property, then you can also withdraw from the contract. And then after you sign in the contract, there is a cooling off period. This is also a very important term you should look at in your contract. Normally it's 5 business days or 5 days. If it didn't say 5 business days, it means 5 calendar days for the cooling off period. You can change your mind, say I don't want it anymore within the cooling off period. But you are not walking away freely. You need to pay a 0.25% penalty. For example, if the property is 1 million, then you need to pay 2,500 penalty. But if you want to cancel the contract after cooling off period, it won't be just 0.25%. It will be your full amount of deposit gone, and the developer also has a right to chase any loss that occurred. For example, if they hired a solicitor to prepare the contract, then you need to also pay back those money. So we don't want to cancel or withdraw from the contract after cooling off period. Cooling off period is the last time for a client to regret for entering into a contract. And then step 6. Step 6 is the waiting period. After a client signs the contract, pays the deposit, they don't really need to do anything. But what we need to do is we need to follow up the construction, and we want to provide our clients with an update from time to time. I would suggest at least once a month. A lot of developers, they will send out notice to buyers, but a lot of them don't. So if you have a client who purchased an off-the-plan apartment or townhouses, to be able to provide a good quality, good service to the client, I think this stage is very important. A lot of agents, they wouldn't provide any updates to the client until the settlement. But if you wanna stand out to provide a good service, you can ask me of the project updates, and we just pass these updates to our client to keep them informed, reassured the building is progressing. Your settlement date is being notified along the way. During this waiting period, we also need to notify and assist our clients to get the formal finance approval. Normally, we will suggest our client to prepare their finance 2 months before the settlement. So the valuation for a property normally is open 2 months before the settlement. That means a building has already completed, practical completion achieved, but the developer hasn't got individual titles yet. But as long as the practical completion complete, the developer will tell the client and us valuation can be booked. And then that's the time we need to notify our clients to get your bank to order the valuation, because after the valuation there's still some loan documents needs to be signed by the client. This normally takes about 2 to 3 weeks. So firstly, get the valuation done, and if the valuation figure back, the bank will send out all these loan documents to the client for them to sign. Once the client sign everything, and then the bank will review the contract and then countersign the contract. After the bank countersign the contract, they will book the settlement. For a loan process, it takes at least 2 to 3 weeks. But a lot of the time, the loan will take 1 month. So we need to notify our clients to get the finance ready as soon as possible. So we remind them 2 months ahead of settlement. So once the developer get the titles, they normally call for settlement within 2 weeks, which is 14 days. 14 days is not enough to get a loan down, so we need to notify clients as early as possible, but not too early. 2 months is a good time. When the valuation is ready, that's kind of a sign to tell us we need to get our client ready. Do we have any questions regarding this part? No? Okay, if no question, I'll move along. And then pre-settlement steps is inspections prior to settlement. So once you pay once the settlement called, there's also inspections will be invited from the developer to the clients. And these inspections normally will be done by a private inspector. The clients can choose to appoint a private inspector to inspect the properties for them. The inspector will find defects and they will issue a defect report to the developer. And once the developer got those defect report, they will try to fix them before the handover. And this settlement statement, what is a settlement statement? This normally prepared by the solicitors. So seller's solicitor will prepare a settlement statement to tell you how much money from the developer need on settlement day. So your solicitor will receive a settlement statement from the seller's solicitor. The buyer's solicitor also needs to prepare a settlement statement to tell the client how much balance due for the property itself. For example, 1 million apartment, the deposit was 100K. Then they will have 900K balance due on settlement. But you also need to pay stamp duty. You also need to pay the solicitor fee. You also need to pay a mortgage lodgement fee. So your solicitor will help you to calculate all these costs, put it into a settlement statement sent to you, and then you will need to prepare all these funds to be able to settle on time. So on settlement day, the process is your solicitor and the bank will attend to the financial settlement. This normally happens on Paxa now. Paxa is an online platform for settlements. The balance, which is the remaining funds, will be paid to the developer. In exchange, the title to your unit will be transferred from the developer to your name. If you have a loan, it will also have the bank's mortgage on your title. For units, there is an additional step to ensure the new community title scheme documents are in place. Do we have any questions regarding this part? No? We'll keep moving then. I think this should be step 2 should be settlement, not pre-settlement steps. We need to change. Ignore here. So step 10 should be settlement. So settlement means after settlement, we will book a time to hand over the keys, access cards, or any remotes for your property. The developer normally will also give you a housewarming gift along the at that time. And then after settlement, after handover, you can also do your checks if you noticed any defects, like the lights are off just 2 days after you move in. You can still the clients can still talk to us and then report these defects back to the developer, and then the developer will fix them. If there's no major defects, for example, like leaking or a huge crack, any safety issue like no power, then we can delay the handover date. But if it's just small defects, normally the handover date cannot be pushed out. But if the client finds any major defects, the handover date can be changed to a later date. So that's the whole process of purchasing a apartment or a townhouse.